Welcome to the third season of Between the Lines, the podcast that brings you interviews with some lesser-known Canadian authors and writers. In this season, we will be exploring some of the works of these unknown but talented poets from various locations across this great country. From the breathtaking landscapes of the far north to the bustling downtown city streets, these writers have captured the essence of Canada in their words. In each episode, we will delve into the lives and careers of these fascinating individuals, learning about their inspirations, challenges, and their triumphs. So join us as we discover the hidden gems of Canadian literature and uncover the stories between the lines. Hello and welcome to Season 3 of Between the Lines. On today's show, I will be speaking with a poet in my hometown of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, Vimal Kodai. Hello, Vimal, and welcome to Between the Lines.
Hello, Randy. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. I'm grateful to Randy for this opportunity on Between the Lines and look forward to it. Thanks.
Well, I look forward to it too. I always like to meet people from around our great country who have a talent for doing what I love to do, and that's writing. So I look forward to this opportunity as well. So thank you. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the interview, I wonder if you'd mind giving our listeners a brief rundown on who Vimal is and what he's about.
I'm originally from Mauritius, l'île Maurice, and I grew up there. Then I came to Canada when I was still a teenager. I did my studies late. I went into languages. I did French as my bachelor, French studies, and afterwards there was not much scope in the French field back then. So I went into teaching, which suited me very well. With time, I felt that I was always writing a lot. I was writing emails and even messages, simple messages. Nowadays, there's WhatsApp, even on Skype. It was always detailed, long. I couldn't write just one line. I was always writing more than one line. With time, I wrote a short story many years ago, 2007, not published, but eventually I felt more adapted to this writing world, which I feel currently connected to with this book of poetry, which was released recently.
Are you still teaching?
Yes, I'm still teaching, Randy. Still teaching. Yeah.
High school level, college level?
I do primary and middle school.
I owe my love of poetry to my grade 5 English teacher. So that's where I was first introduced to poetry. And then later in high school, I was introduced to writing poetry. That's where my interests first were developed. So I have a fond memory of those teachers who inspired me. So keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, Randy.
Normally, in past seasons, I would go right into question period. But because we are doing something a little different with season 3, we are now going to take an opportunity to allow you to read one of your poems for us. Are you ready to do that?
Yes, Randy. I've selected a few poems, so I'm going to read the first one.
All right, thank you.
It's from my recently published book. It's entitled Tâche à accomplir. That's the title of the book, Tâche à accomplir. And the subtitle is Phrases à effacer, phrases de mes poèmes, poésie exilée. That's the title of the poem, subtitle.
Okay.
So the poem which I chose for today, for this occasion, for this event, it's entitled, it's a French poem, entitled La profondeur de mon âme. So I'm going to read it right now.
Mm-hmm.
La profondeur de mon âme. En allant à la haute vitesse et en escaladant mes tristes peines, en faisant sursaut et en pleurant des cordes sur les montagnes, en me disant que mes peines sont si douloureuses et si vaines, en me rassurant que ma vie n'a aucun espoir puisqu'elle vaille le bagne, en me taisant à cause l'eau. en me rassurant que ma vie n'a aucun espoir puisqu'elle va et le bagne, en me taisant et en faisant allusion aux âges maudits. Ainsi, je ne me fais aucun souci au sujet des paysages inédits. En adoucissant mes pensées, je me rends sans rancune et je me remets en marche vers les milieux de ma lune. La profondeur de mon âme ne se laisse jamais envisager. J'ai des larmes qui déplaisent à mon cœur sans pitié. Ma voix et mes pensées s'inscrivent sur les surfaces vaines. Elles pleurent aussi longtemps que mon âme me soutienne. Elles s'acharnent contre les vitraux de maisonnettes modestes. Elles se concentrent sur les idées des poètes d'un univers sans planète. La profondeur de mon âme porterait des vues venant des visages fautifs. Elle peint de beaux de tristesse qui font de moi un homme saint. Elle décrit ce qui doit être vécu en étant vif. Elle rédige des poèmes qui règnent sur les trônes divins. La profondeur de mon âme n'est pas aussi vive que ma lutte sûre. Je souris, je pleure, je m'inspire, je me maudis, je me bénis. Je dessine, j'imagine, je me renforce et je me rassure. La profondeur de mon âme, c'est une vérité louable de ma vie. That's the first poem.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I have a French heritage, and so I'm familiar with a lot of what you put into that. But I would have to say that to me, that did not sound like Canadian French, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not. Okay, good. Whew. So if you were to, have you ever decided to translate that into English, or?
I could translate it spontaneously. I could, yeah.
Well, I'm not asking you to do it now, but I'm just, for the sake of those listening, I mean, loosely translate, what would the title in English mean?
It would mean the depth of my soul. The depth of my soul, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So I understood a couple of words in there, like heart and yeah. So, okay. I was following along with you, and that was, I love your French. It's so un-Canadian. We're going to move right into question period then, Vimal. And so question number one is, who introduced you to poetry and with what?
As far as I recall, the first poem which I wrote came from a thought, which came from myself. I had a cousin, I believe it was the year 1987, which I recall. 1987, that's when I wrote my first thought down. And we're just playing around in the living room, and my cousin just said, Vimal, let's play a game. Let's just write our thoughts down. And I wrote my thoughts down, she wrote her thoughts down, and we were just playing around, right? We didn't take it seriously. But I tend to take things seriously at times. I usually still do. So what I meant, I tended to take things seriously back then. I still do sometimes, depending on situations. So I wrote a thought down for about 4 or 5 lines. And my cousin loved it so much. And that's what gave some good energies and good insights to my mind and soul back then. And since then, that became part of me somehow.
And you've been going strong ever since.
I believe so, Randy. I believe so. Because the year after I wrote a few more poems. And even in 88, that's 88, I wrote a few more poems, 3 more. In 89, I wrote a few more as well. Again, just basic, not much. There were lots of grammar mistakes, but still it was not that clear. But I do remember they were good poems. I didn't read them again, but I do recall they were quite good poems.
Do you still have them?
I don't have them. That's the thing. I don't have them. I wrote them in my diaries, my personal diaries, and now it's all gone.
Lost to time.
I wish I had brought them from Mauritius to here, but never did.
Yep, the things we lose that we look back and go, I wish. Do you have a preferred style of poetry? For example, sonnet, limerick, haiku, etc.?
based on your question, I did some searching. I didn't know myself what my style of poetry is. So I did some searching on this. While looking exactly what my poetry is about, I came up with three main like labels or categories, right?
Okay.
It's sonnet, I believe, sonnet, acrostic, and freestyle. I think those are more connected to my poetry. Sonnet, acrostic, and freestyle.
Do you lean on any one of those three more than the other? Or do you say, or would you say that you spread what you write between the three different styles?
I would say it's spread out. Sometimes it's just freestyle. Sometimes it's just sonnet. Sometimes just acrostic. Depending on that moment, right? The time of writing. It's just about the timing matters.
Which form or style do you find easiest to write?
A very good question.
That's why I asked.
I'm not sure what to answer.
There is no style per se. It's just writing free. But sonnet follows a pattern, as does the other. So, you either have to set out with that thought in mind, or it develops as you're writing, or what happens?
Okay, that's the more specific question. Now I can answer. Perfect. Thanks, Randy. Thanks for this. Appreciate it. So you're right. When I start writing, or when I used to start writing, or when I do, eventually, I have something going on in my mind, which is subconscious. It's not something which I can anticipate, but it's just my emotional state which just pours itself on paper or on my computer, right? I would type, right? Nowadays, a long time ago, it was writing with pen. So I would say it's all my state of emotion that pours itself on paper, that develops. Once I stop typing, it just comes up. Then I can see what it is. Otherwise, it's subconscious. I cannot tell what I really am writing. There's no such plan. If you look at all my poetry, my poems, there was no plan. I just start writing, and there is an emotional state which is there, and it just pours itself on paper. That's how it is.
So, have you ever tried to create your own patterns? Like I said, sonnets have a certain pattern that you follow, as do other styles of poetry. Have you ever tried to create your own?
I think I did. In this. Yeah, I did. Because I may add, had a colleague from my teaching in Toronto. He reviewed my poem before I published it. He said, Vimal, there's no rhyme. There's no, A-B, right? A. There's no such thing. Where's the poem? I was about to tell him that it's my style. I wanted to drop something new. I couldn't say. I just said, Alonco, I agree. I did not put those patterns. There was no pattern, and I need to put that. And I tried to edit it. And I said, and it's not my writing. Then I left it as it is, and it became as it is. Yeah, exactly.
I can't speak for every poet, but for myself, when I write, I do try to write outside of those patterns. I try to come up with something that's different, uniquely mine, but still fits into the overall reaching, arches of poetry itself. Because, there's many different styles, but I think to be unique, we have to come up with something, or a lot of poets that I've talked to feel that they need to diverse themselves from other styles. And I think that's my driving. That's what keeps me writing, is trying to find that new style, that new look. Would you say that's the same for you?
Yes, Randy, definitely. The reason being that when I did my studies in literature at York University in French French literature, French studies as well. I did observe that in the history of literature, like in each period of our time, of human time, medieval, Renaissance, modern age, all these periods, right? There was always a unique style that was developed, and that was connected to what was happening back then, right? Medieval. It reflected on the poems that were being written. Even Renaissance, all these periods, they each have their own pattern, and that's why they are known as Renaissance and medieval, and there's a specific reason for those. And for me, right now, it's neither Renaissance, medieval, or modern age, but it's my emotional state, my personal feel about poetry, my personal feel about expression, right? Expressing myself in writing, and I would say that there's no set pattern for me. I try, like you mentioned, creativity is the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Creativity and creating something new. Exactly. New.
Well, yeah, probably like every time you set out to write, you just set out to write what comes to you, and how it ends up on the page is a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Would you happen to have another poem that you can read for us?
Yes, Randy. Yes, I do have another one.
The floor is yours, or in this case, the microphone is yours, Vimal.
Well, thanks, Randy. So this one is this was in English. The title is Love and Trust. Love and trust. My past scrolled by with disasters that were nil. My past sins, my past thoughts were pouring in vain. The undecided moments of my pains derived from a smoothed spill, came from instances that were unnoticed by all the radical sane. I applaud my sunrise, I implore my sunset. I applaud the breezes that capsize, I implore the miseries and sorrows that aren't met. My love came to me on an autumn day unmatched. It arrived to seek out and to search for me. She came to make me feel the real me. My love came to me to address those doubts unhatched. Came to see that I was becoming the real tree. She arrived to make me feel that I was once again free. Love arrived in my life to test my unmet tasks. It came to denote those pleasurable miseries. Love reached my destination to suggest that I shouldn't ask. It came to me to state that I'm not full of treacheries. I smile, I laugh, I shed tears, and I make allusions to my past. I live, I shout, and I aim at those unmet goals. I know and I go. I show and I run to be the last. I dig and I plow, and I survive those moments of goals. Love revisits me, the unknown. It replenishes the true secrets of my life. Love has me seated at peace with its true realities dwelling in my wife. Love shows me how to relive those moments that are thus inside. It attests for the trust which I wanted to win in my skies so wide. That's the symbol.
That's wonderful. That actually leads right into the next question I have for you. I sense a romantic theme in that. So the question is what is romantic poetry? Why do you describe yourself as a contemporary romantic poet?
A good question. I would say I didn't have much luck and much chances, much opportunities in the field of love, the field of romance, right? Romance, love. But somehow when I grew older and I connected to a few people, but love itself came to be on paper for me when I started to feel true emotions, true passion for writing, and when my words started to express those real meanings which I wanted to express on paper. I feel that as a romantic poet, first of all, you have to be a poet, right? Or writer. And this has to come from inside. And a romantic poet cannot write romance unless he has gone through romance or heartbreak or something similar, right?
So write what you know.
Pardon?
Write what you know.
Write what you know. Exactly. Write what you know. Otherwise, it has no meaning. It's not, it's just, how to say, pretentious or not real, right? But if experiences have been undergone, have been lived, and that passion, that development of this experience has become intense enough to show its worth, then on paper it becomes just clear and expressive and to its depth. I believe as a romantic poet, you need to have the passion for writing, first of all, and know what's the meaning of love, and know what's the meaning of hatred, know what's betrayal, know what's heartbreak, know what's evil, know what's good, how to distinguish between them, and know where to not cross the line, where to cross the line. Those things matter. That's when it comes to be on paper, I think.
But all those qualities that you've just listed about love, whether they're positive or negative, also exist in just about everything else in life too, though. So they're not exclusive to love.
Perfect.
Or romance.
Agree to that.
I'm smarter than I look.
That's true. You're right. Absolutely correct. No, correct. I agree. Definitely agree.
Do you think that, okay, so when I write a poem and say, for example, I post it up in my group, I have a writing group on Facebook. And when I post it and I get comments, oh, I feel so sorry for you. A lot of the stuff that I write comes from my imagination. There's a little bit of me in there, but the whole poem is not about anything I've particularly experienced or gone through. I try to imagine it. And I'm either a really good faker or people aren't that insightful. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yes, of course. Sorry, can I answer? Yeah. Yes, and Randy, I think this is a possibility. But you mentioned something in what you just said, right? There is part of you in the poem that's real, right? And then the rest is just a development from that idea, correct? Therefore, that small chunk is still there. The reality is still there.
The reality is still there in a small part, but it may not be true for the rest of what's being written. It's presumption on the reader's part to think that I've actually experienced or gone through all of that. But that's the beautiful thing about being a writer, is allowing your reader to have the liberty to interpret it for themselves in their own feelings. Because really, people who read, they read it and they try to relate it to themselves to some degree.
No, you're right. There's a good part to what you just said. And I believe if I would be accurate, some of my poems, I would say they do have, I would say maybe, my poems not, it's entirely true. I would say my man is a good example. You're right. When writing, you have that freedom to express, develop that idea, create it, blossom, and make it flourish, make it rooted out with something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as the idea is still not in the emptiness, it's out something significant and meaningful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the acceptance of the poem becomes rich and flourishing. I believe that the idea there, you mentioned something that's significant to readers, because reading something is not always about depth or profoundness. It's sometimes about lightening the mind, freeing that mind. That profoundness sometimes creates more depth in the mind to think more. If you're free, that's a lesson. The thing that's also important in life, right? It cannot always be deep, profound. You need to have this freedom of lightening things, making things pleasurable in the good tone. I would say good tone. I would say in the lightening. Therefore, making feel less, not deep sometimes, right?
You just brought to mind something. So, would you say that writers, and in this case, I'm going to go with poets specifically, would you say that there is a great deal of similarity between a poet and somebody who is an artist, like paintings and stuff like that, because it's about interpretation of the medium, right? So you can look at a painting and get this, and somebody else will look at the same painting and get something totally different, just like words.
Yes, Randy. Yes, Randy, definitely. Painting or a piece of art, sculpture or even pottery, painting, acrylic, oil, watercolor, even woodwork, all these have their own connection to the expression of emotions, right? They display something that comes from inside sometimes, and sometimes they might not, right? Mm-hmm. They can just be in terms of the display itself. It might always symbolize something else, right? You may have no idea what it comes from, right? You have no idea sometimes what the artist is doing, just like you don't have no idea what the writer is doing, right? Unless you have the writer, right? For instance, example, I was in my French class and my teacher was teaching a poem by Victor Hugo. Maybe you heard of this poem, Demain dès l'aube. And he read the poem, and all my thoughts were Victor Hugo was putting a flower on the tomb of his lover or something, maybe. Mm-hmm. But he just said, no, it's not his lover. It's not his wife. It's not what he loved. It was his daughter, right? So my teacher knew the history of Victor Hugo, what he went through, what he's went through. And I said, okay, then you cannot assume things sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. The background or the true meaning, true story behind it, right? That's it. Yeah, true.
I woke up this morning and I had two words on my brain, and I went and got my coffee to try and work those two words. And then the thought that followed those words were pretty much everybody who writes, whether it be fiction or poetry or whatever, we all commit emotional treason. What do you think about that?
We all commit emotion treason. Do you mean in terms of phrasing the words, changing them, change the sentence, and just playing with it and make it turn into something?
Yeah, but our emotions, because we're pretty much dominated by our emotions. We are controlled by our emotions, which are treasonous to us. They lead us one way when we should be going another way. So there's a form of treason going on, and then when we transfer that to paper, because we have what we have in mind when we write it, and other people are reading and getting something different. There's a treason going on there, of sorts.
A treason? Do you mean treachery or faking?
Oh, yeah.
Turning into something different, like something that's not you or that's not the writer. You mean that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I would say it may be true, it may be not, because to conclude or to confirm my own writing, right, I need to look at it well. because I do believe that whatever I wrote was, I would say some of them 100%, some of them maybe 99 or 98% myself, but maybe the question you asked won't apply to my situation, but I need to confirm this because I need to read the whole thing again. But I do remember, I recall, right? Whatever I wrote came from deep inside, and it was much reflected my own my own profound thinking at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because each of my poems have the date written on it, right? Look at this one, that's the date here. The bottom. So each of the poem I wrote has the date at the bottom, Randy.
I typically date mine as well.
Exactly. So these when I look back on those dates, right, they do symbolically signify something at that time, right? Therefore, I cannot conclude that either they were partially not me or partially myself, but I would say differently. They were totally what I felt and being written on its fullest, I would say. Fullest, right? Therefore, the question you asked, I think, doesn't apply to me, frankly.
Okay.
Next phrase.
It's, like I said, it was just a thought that came to my mind, and I wanted to develop it and see what other people thought. You were the first one that I had a chance to share that thought with. So, what is involved with your writing process?
So I first started writing poems as a solid pieces, like solid poem, right? Good poems. I would say good poems. I would just poems in the entirety from my own insights and experience. In 2014, about 8 years ago. So I would say these poems I wrote, they express my true feelings and emotions about what I was undergoing. And sorry, Randy, can you ask the question again?
Sure.
Just ask it again.
What is involved with your writing process? So when you sit down to write, or like, do you consciously make an effort to sit down and write, or do you write when something comes to you, and how do you do that? Or like, what's involved in your whole writing process?
Good. Now I'm good. Thanks, Randy, for this. I'm glad I asked again. So in my writing process, when I started writing in 2014, I wasn't writing every day. I was writing every single day. But I was writing every time something came up to my mind, and I felt it should be expressed on paper. And I could express it verbally, orally, right? So I put it down on paper. And there was no set pattern for poetry. Poetry did set patterns. Set days, I don't have set days. Maybe one day, at one go, I would write one poem. That's what I know. There's no such thing as 2 days, 3 days to write a poem. One day I would write one full poem, and I would edit it later if needed, but 1 day is for one poem. In my writing process, I do other kinds of writing besides poetry. I do fiction as well, fiction and historical fiction. For those, it's different from poetry, but I believe that this interview is about poetry, right? Therefore, yes. I wouldn't say novel writing. I would say my poetry don't have a set process. It would be definite on the same day, finish same day, and 2 days later, 3 days later, even a week later, or a month later, if I come up with new emotional depth, I would say, emotional experience, then I would pour it on paper again. I think that's how it is about. For poetry, that's how it is.
Did you have any further comments you wanted to make with regards to your writing process? So when you're out and about, away from your home or your computer, unless you carry a computer with you, but do you carry a notebook, a physical notebook?
No, I don't.
No?
I don't.
Have you ever?
Don't think I did. I really did.
Interesting.
No, I never did. No, never did.
Cool. You're one of the lucky ones. I've lost books and books and books of stuff.
No, but the reason being that I tend to, when I'm in my office room, that's when I feel I can write. When I'm in the openness, it's open for me. I cannot put it on. I feel that the finesse just distracts me sometimes. I need that quietness in this thing. That's why, for me, it's that place.
And that's the beautiful thing about writers. Various ways, various inspirations, right?
Definitely. Each one their own style, their own way of doing the work. Exactly. Right.
Absolutely. For the most part, poetry has a small market of readers. Does social media benefit poets as reaching a larger audience or market? And what are the pros and cons? What are the pros and cons of poetry being published on social media, in your opinion?
This question doesn't really appeal to me because I didn't want to select that one for this interview, but I said, let me just select something which maybe pushes me to answer something, right?
Right.
And I selected it either way. I said, if all are just about me, then just me, right? Let me just select something out of the norm. Maybe something about, you just mentioned, the social media, a different topic, right? Because the rest mostly about me, the writing process is just, it's a bit different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So social has this impact on writers and poets in different ways. Facebook, Twitter, I think those are the main platforms. There's Instagram as well, Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the three ones I have. They do convey some advantages. That is pros, right?
Right.
And the advantages being that writers or poets, right, likewise, can publish the poem anytime at their own will, as long as they have internet connection, right? And put it there. And readers can be exposed to these writings.
Instant access.
Instant. Perfect. Good answer. That's the answer. Instant access. And spontaneously, they can give their feedback, their review right away, right? Give their opinion. Suggestions sometimes, if the writer can improve or maybe know what they didn't do right. The next poem can be just improvement, right? Always room for improvement, right?
Yep.
Or what could be not healthy or healthy to the readers and some things like this, right? And so the good part is that feedback review can be done spontaneously, other than just small thing, right? Correct. Mm-hmm. Quickly. Other things are that the readers can access those in different ways. Let us say they go on a page for one of poetry societies, poetry clubs, poetry institutions that are on Facebook or Twitter, or even Instagram doesn't have those things. Instagram only has photographs, but Twitter and Facebook, they can always select which ones they want to read, depending on the type of clubs or institutions they're connected to or following, right? On Facebook. They can access the specific type of poem depending on the needs or the quality. And or with time, they can connect with the type of poet who is writing those poems on Facebook or posting those things. Let me just be clearer. Let's say a poet posts something today on Facebook or Twitter.
Okay.
And with time, let's say that the reader feels connected to that kind of poem. So he looks forward to another posting next time, maybe, possibly, right? Which the poet might always post again in a few days or 3 days. And since the poem comes up again, that reader might feel eager to look for more. And depending on his or her feedback to that poem, it can create more nourishing thoughts to the poet to
Agreed.
give more. And I think that's a good platform to expose, right? To expose yourself as a poet, and a good platform for readers
Now
to show their appreciation of poem on these type of social media platforms.
there
So
is one drawback to that though, and that all depends on whether you self-publish or traditional publish, because traditional publishers, if you've already published something on a social media platform, that's already considered published and they will not accept that.
Can you repeat that, please, Brandy?
So it would depend on how you go about publishing. If you self-publish, it doesn't matter if it's been on Facebook or Instagram or wherever. Whereas if you assemble a collection of your works and one of those works happens to have appeared on Facebook or Twitter, then the publishing companies will not accept that because it's already been published.
Okay, I know what you're saying.
So that's a drawback to putting it out there on social media.
You're right, but the rules of the rules, right, of
Yeah.
the poem world, right?
Yeah.
You're right. Those things matter, and so writers need to be cautious about these. You're right.
I guess the takeaway is to be careful what you put out there because you might not be able to use it traditionally.
Again, right? Again, another circumstance, or that's a disadvantage. Yeah, good. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Is poetry dying, or do you think there's still enough interest in it to keep writing?
I would say yes and no, yes and no, yes and no, no and yes. But still, it is a fact that writing is still ongoing, right? Writing, poetry or non-poetry, writing is still ongoing. So, what is poetry or fiction or non-fiction or historical? It's still writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's writing. And poetry is just a way of expressing oneself, right? I would say in a short form, in a short, specific form, right? It's
Unless
not like
you're writing an epic.
Unless. Good point. I would say poetry is, I would say it's not dying. Not dying because writing isn't dying.
Well, no, you're right. But I mean, I don't know how many people I've encountered and they, oh, you're a writer? What do you write? Well, I write poetry. Oh, I don't read poetry. It seems that if you go back through history, there were points in time where poetry was all the rage. And then that died out and something else became popular, or the short story or the, horror novel or whatever. And it seems like it cycles through, and every once in a while there's a resurgence in the popularity of this genre or that genre. And I think poetry right now is in that stage where it's coming back into resurgence, but for the most part, most of the people that I've encountered, I don't really read poetry, but I think it's starting to come back where people are getting excited about it again because of what we've gone through in the last few years around the world has really touched on our emotions, and poetry really plays on those emotions more than any other form of writing, I think.
You're right. Right. I think poetry is dying. I think because as a teacher, I feel that poetry is something that gets kids involved, and that's something which is important for them to grow.
Have you introduced poetry to your students?
Yes, I have.
And what was their response?
The response was good, depending on the class, but I would say overall it was very good, very good. And I feel that they tend to describe themselves well, right? I wouldn't want to be too personal on this, too personal, because I feel that children, they like to express in various ways, depending on the age, right? Various ways.
Who do you write for?
At first I was writing just for my emotions, for myself. And, but when I look at the poems themselves, they don't just relay my emotions. They relay what's going on, what has been going on. And when look what has been written, it's always towards a specific experience being lived, some kind of specific disturbance or specific glow, specific inspiration, specific coming out of the shell. Those things, the emotions. There's sorry, let me just be clearer. Coming out, feeling revived, feeling inspired, feeling motivated, feeling looking forward to more glows, more lights in life, right? Finding meanings in life, finding what can make a difference, what can deny those unwanted moments, right? And but my poems do convey something towards an episode or person or myself or something who made me feel good or made me feel bad or made me feel bad is the wrong word. I don't like to use the word bad. Made me feel not well, not good. Not good is a better word. Feel not good and made me feel unconnected or connected. But usually my poems are about conveying a certain message that can display what I was living through or going through.
It's a good way to say it.
Yeah, I think that's the better answer.
Have you ever had somebody read one of your poems and then somehow contact you and say, I know exactly what you're feeling because I went through that? And if so, how did that make you feel to know that somebody could connect with what you've written?
It felt really good. That's the answer. If I were to say otherwise, I felt that the poems have meanings now. Otherwise, just be on my computer and just no messages going out, just there, just nowhere. But once it's on paper and it symbolizes something to someone, it means something to someone, then it has a meaning, right? Otherwise, it has no meaning. But yeah, it made me feel really, really happy that it impacts on others.
I asked you to select a bunch of questions for this interview, but what you weren't aware of is there's a mysterious eighth question that I get to ask you that you have no idea was coming. So here's the question. As a contemporary romantic poet, is there anything you will not write about in your poetry, and why not?
As a contemporary romantic poet, is there anything you won't write in the poem, and why, correct?
Correct. So is there a taboo subject within romantic poetry that you will not touch?
Like when I write, right? It's not just about romance. There's other themes as well, right?
Right.
But as a romantic poet, I would say the main thing I would not touch, well, I touch practically everything, is what I feel. But I would not touch, if I can think what I would not touch, right? Good, Randy. I think, because whatever I feel, I write.
The answer could be as simple as no.
Maybe that personal touch, right? Very personal, very sensitive part, right? Sensitive part to connection. I like that. I would say, if the word is right, that sexual part. I wouldn't touch that part. I think
that's too intimate for other eyes.
Exactly. I wouldn't touch that part, which I think I don't touch. But I wouldn't touch that true reality, the sexual. Maybe I don't like that word, but still it is sexual.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand it fully, and I'm pretty sure that the listeners will too. Any advice for up-and-coming poets?
I would say, as a teacher, I feel that motivating students to write, and not just poetry, maybe writing overall, that's something I would convey the same to other writers, other poets. Just express the fullest and try to be creative, make experience being reflected on paper. Try to go off the norms, not the same trend, or it, be your own, right?
Very much so, yeah.
Make originality and make your way through a different path that would be striking, exceptional, and it would mark a different period to a different generation, to a different audience. I would say those are the things. Maybe do not target one specific audience. Target a general one.
Mm-hmm.
Try to write more general things, not just one. Maybe a few you can write about one specific theme, but don't always target one audience. Target a specific audience. Target a different audience. Then more acceptance of the poem becomes witnessed. More acceptance, right?
All good things, sir. All good things. We're going to switch gears here a little bit. And what books do you currently have available on the market, and where can people find them?
Thanks for this, Randy. I only have one book so far. It's one I published. Under me, the publisher published, sorry. It's this one, Tâche Accomplie. That's the title. It's my first published work. It was published last year in end of December.
Okay.
In fact, exactly 31st of December 2021 it was published, and, right at the dusk of 2021. And it's a bilingual book, bilingual book of poem with paintings, illustrations done by my wife.
Okay.
And the content is bilingual. There's English, French poems, but it was officially French. It's officially considered French because most of it are French, and the title is French. So they put it as a French book, but it is bilingual, definitely.
And where is it available?
It's available on Amazon, amazon.com.ca, UK.
There will be a link to your Amazon place for people to click on in the transcript. So,
thank you, Andy. So, Smashwords, Barnes and Noble. What else? Indigo chapters, Book Depository, and what else? There's so Amazon, Indigo chapters, Indigo.
Most Barnes major bookstores.
Bookstores, I would say it's not much, but there's been a few in the beginning when it was just released. It was there, but then it just stopped. It became more online. Main ones are Amazon, Smashwords, Barnes and Noble, Indigo chapters, and there are a few others. I cannot think of those. Book Depository.
Now, are there any local bookstores in the Ottawa Hall, Orleans area that carry it, or?
They used to in the beginning. It was released in December 2021, but now it's a bit less.
Okay.
I would say there is, but maybe you can check. It might always be. Maybe I should look into that.
So was it traditionally published or self-published?
It was published by a publisher.
Okay. You want to plug their name?
Tellwell.
Okay. And we'll provide a link for that as well. And I'm not getting any money for any of this, so just to let everybody who's listening know, I do not do this for money, just like my writing. Are you currently working on anything? And if so, how close are you to completing it?
Right now, I'm not working on anything, but I started working on something quite a while ago. It's a little process. It's a novel, but about 2/3 way completed, half completed.
Okay.
Half to go, and it's
and
a
is
novel.
It science fiction or romance or?
It's historical fiction.
Oh, okay.
And,
I interviewed another historical fiction author in season 2.
Yes. No, it's nice to write about this story sometimes. I feel that it's half completed and still has half to go, and I just need to keep on working on it. I haven't started yet again, but I'm hopeful it should be ready by next year and then submit it to the publisher and get going. But it's still not kind of conclude about that one.
Okay.
And I need to work on that one, please. Yeah, need to work on that one now.
Yeah, I think we all have projects like that on the go. I'm going to switch up. I had 2 more questions for you, but I'm going to switch the order of them. So where can people connect with you? Facebook, email, snail mail, TikTok, Instagram. The list can go on and on, but where can people connect with you, Vimal?
I have a Facebook account for
an author page.
Author page, yeah. And I have a Twitter as well. Twitter.
What's your Twitter handle?
Twitter is Vimal Kodai.
Okay. And we will also list these as well in the transcripts.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you much. And for the Facebook, it's Vimal Kodai, my wife's name. So.
Okay.
It's maybe I can write it down.
Well, you can just let me know. I'll just put it into the transcripts. Email me that information. TikTok?
TikTok I don't have.
Yeah.
No. I need to find out it though, but I'll need to find out.
Okay.
And then Instagram as well, Instagram.
Excellent. And again, like I said, we will post all these in the transcripts for everybody to be able to find you and get in touch with you. So the last question, if you had to choose one of your, well, you don't have many books, you only have the one. So if you were to choose one of your poems as a favorite, which one would it be? And then to follow that up with, would you read it for us? Or just read another poem to close out.
Good one. I think I'm just going to read one. I don't have any favorite, but I do have one which I planned for today, and that's the...
So this one is a French poem. This one is a French title and French poem as well. Cette haine. Cette haine, it means hatred. Cette haine, this hatred in English. So I'm going to start. Cette haine. Cette haine. Quand le vent souffle avec stupeur et que le soleil brille sous ses feux, quand les moqueries du temps passé lancent le défi et que la tempête fracasse contre mes émotions, vagues pleines de larmes, quand les bêtises humaines me châtient et que le pleur rayonne, je me retire de ces ennuyeuses demeures emplies d'ignorance et de bruit. Quand la turbulence s'accroît et que la violence se montre efficace, quand les doutes se prolongent sans cesse et que la peur s'intensifie, quand les soulagements s'enfoncent et éliminent mes douleurs, et que les ouragans se retirent de mes milieux indignes, je vois une lueur de lumière qui chagrine sous mes sourires lointains. Lorsque la haine me châtie et que la rancune creuse en permanence, lorsque la vilaine explore mon entourage, qu'elle efface ma sincérité, je cite quelques intentions affectueuses en implorant mes faiblesses. Lorsque la noirceur existe sous mes pas incertains et que je tombe, je cible une certaine trajectoire qui fera de moi personne joyeuse. Avec cette douleur qui m'entoure et qui me guide toujours, je voyage à travers un chemin cheminant vers la certitude. Le succès s'exclamant avec de fierté et l'échouement avec de la honte, je visite plusieurs endroits pittoresques, endroits flambants de gaieté. Ainsi, péniblement, je pénètre l'ampleur de ma vie. Lorsque la haine persiste sans pitié, lorsque cette haine qui en croissance dépasse la bonté, qu'elle épuise la modestie et l'honnêteté, je souligne mes histoires en m'évadant de mes sottises. Cette haine qui existe en permanence n'a besoin d'aucune nuance.
The French language, let me tell you. Even I like the French language. Thank you for reading that. Thank you for sharing, your poetry with us. But in closing, what would you tell anyone who might be too afraid to take the chance on being published as a poet?
I think that a person goes through something in his or her life that creates that doubt, that scary emotion, right? And to be afraid, to be doubtful, it has to have a reason, right? To me, being afraid and doubtful needs to clear. You have to clear the doubt and scariness, the fright needs to be cleared away from. Eliminate that part first. Know the reason why you'd be afraid. Know the reason why you're being doubtful, and then follow your dreams. Follow your dreams. Know why you write for. To convey a message, as you mentioned, profit. No, that's something. But know why you write. To deliver a message, to convey a message, to be meaningful, impactful on others, and just make something exceptional happen, right? And just demonstrate an true worth out there, right? That's the goal. Therefore, first of all, to be able to convey a message, just focus on conveying message. Put the scariness away, the doubt away. The goal is to start with something good. Focus on the good. Eliminate the bad. Eliminate the not good. And make it happen. Make it happen by using creativity, originality. And I always believe in exceptions. Always exceptions. They always happen. Believing in that element of exception, trigger something in the mind of readers. Know how to create that trigger. Good triggers, not bad triggers. Good triggers. Just convey something meaningful out there that just marks an epic journey for others, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it creates balance to their lives, right? Creates equilibrium in their lives, and just inspires, motivates, positively boosts someone. It guides, deviates from all the bad, not good, right? It creates something just truly remarkable. That's it.
In my first book and several of my other books, I've included the following statement. I do not necessarily write because I have something to say, but rather because there may be something you need to hear.
Definitely. Agree.
And I believe that with all of my heart. I may not have a message, but in what I write, there may be something you need to hear. Vimal, thank you so much for doing this. I've really enjoyed the time that we've been able to talk about writing, the poetry, the processes, the thoughts. I don't think poetry is dying, but I think it needs to be reintroduced in today's world. It's there, but it needs to be on a larger forefront. And that is the purpose for this podcast. Yes. And thank you for agreeing to do this.
Yes, Randy. Thanks to you. Thank you to you. Thanks to you. Appreciative of your questions. Appreciative of how you made me feel comfortable to reply. I would like to say that I had planned to say things otherwise, but the way you made me feel comfortable had just created something different and just truly exceptional. Which is, I appreciate your way you feel comfortable and just ease the flow at the beginning of the, remember at the beginning you said, want to drink something, have something, what do you want to do before start? Those things are important, and I salute that in you. And I appreciate your kindness and just ongoing willingness to communicate in the past. And thanks to you, Randy.
Pleasure is all mine.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Between the Lines. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and were inspired to either start writing or to keep on writing. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for future episodes or guests, you can reach out to us by sending an email to randy.btlpodcast@gmail.com. Use comment or suggestion in the subject line. For a copy of the transcript of this or any other episode, just send us an email using transcript as the subject line and indicate which season and episode you would like a transcript for. Visit my website, therandylacey.ca, where you can purchase one of my books, read my blog, and yes, even hear every episode of this podcast. If you have enjoyed what you've heard and would like to hear more, click the Buy Me a Coffee button at the top right corner of the page to help cover the costs associated with keeping this show available to you. If you're ever feeling overwhelmed by the many lines in your life, take a deep breath and remember the wise words of Winnie the Pooh. Sometimes the smallest things take up the most room in your heart. Until next time, keep on keeping between the lines.